I got up in the mornings looking forward to going to work. I enjoyed the people that I worked with. I enjoyed the job we did. I enjoyed going out and helping people. I have to honestly say that I enjoyed every minute of my fire department career.
Yeah, 1959, when I joined the department, I was 21 years old.
I got hired at the end of 1967.
I came on the department in 1973.
We started the whole thing.
In Wichita Falls, the city was established in 1882. 9 years later, we established the fire department. Before that, we really didn't need one, but the thing that prompted it most of all was businesses were paying the highest insurance rates in the state of Texas, in Wichita Falls in that time. So businessmen got together and formed a fire department. If you had a fire department, your interest rates lowered a little bit. So that was the thing that started the fire department in Wichita Falls.
In 1891, the Wichita Falls Fire Department was established by John C. Sigler. A hook and ladder wagon were purchased to get the newly established department off the ground.
There's horses. It's a horse-drawn wagon. They used buckets of water. They got them from wells, water wells. So it was a very, very archaic system back then, compared to what we have now. First headquarters of the fire department was at 10th and Scott at Alamo Elementary School. The fire department would meet once a month. They had a constitution of bylaws. They had to meet once a month, and they would meet in the evenings, probably about 7 o'clock at night. So the school wasn't in session when they met.
In 1893, Joseph C. Ward became fire chief, serving until 1904. Ward owned a dry goods store at the corner of 8th and Ohio. He is credited with keeping the department together during the tough times of the Panic of 1893, when the nation fell into an economic depression.
A lot of people left Wichita Falls. Business times were tough. The fire department was falling apart. Sigler, he's the one that started the fire department. His tin shop burned down. He left town. So everything was kind of falling apart. J.C. Ward picked up the reins and took the fire department, for the next step to about 1904. Prior to 1907, the fire department was entirely volunteer. It was operated by successful businessmen. You were required to have a job. In 1907, it was kind of a year that the city was growing. It was growing past brook. The firemen were having to pull their equipment, hand pull it a dozen blocks or more in the heat, and they were threatening to quit if the city did not hire a man to stay in the station, also have a team of horses in the station. So in that year, they hired J.L. McClure, the first paid firefighter in Wichita Falls, paid him $50 a month. And then they bought a team of horses, bought a new wagon, and from there it kind of took off.
In 1909, the city built the new City Hall at 9th and Ohio for $15,000. Around this time, the city also purchased the first motorized fire engine for $7,500. The Wichita Falls Fire Department was slowly becoming more and more established. Due to the Burt Burnett oil boom, the population of Wichita Falls went from 8,000 in 1910 to over 40,000 in 1920. By this time, the fire department had grown to 24 fully paid members.
The Texan Hotel was built during the oil boom, and at that time we had such tremendous growth in this city that developers were building hotels left and right, and they were building it kind of shoddily in that it was a brick exterior, and it was all wood interior. There was nothing shielding any of the floors from fire. If a fire started in the building, it burned the whole thing. Essentially it was a brick oven when it caught on fire.
On May 14, 1942, Wichita Falls would experience the deadliest fire in the city's history when the Texan Hotel caught fire. This fire claimed the lives of 4 civilians. 2 were killed inside of the building, and 2 jumped to their deaths from the upper story window ledges.
The fire department had just ordered a 100-foot aerial ladder truck the year before, and 2 weeks after the fire occurred, it arrived. They thought that if the truck had been in service, it would have been, they could have saved the 2 lives that jumped. Basically, the concept in the fire department back then was the building on fire was a total loss. Their job was to pull it down and save the buildings around it. The evolution of that is we've come to a point where we now make a very aggressive interior attack on a fire building and put the fire out, but we still protect the exposures of the buildings around. But it's changed. It's evolved into a much different department.
The pay was real bad back in them days. I was a captain for 24 years. I was 24 years as a captain, and I think my base pay was $1,100.
In the late 1940s, the citizens of Wichita Falls voted state civil service law into place for Wichita Falls fire and police departments. Hiring and promotions were now regulated by state law, removing politics and favoritism that plagued the departments in the past.
Well, we were 24 on and 24 off. Every 2 weeks you had what they call a killing day. You got a day off. That's to keep you from having to working too many hours in a month.
As the Wichita Falls Fire Department continued to grow in the 1950s, so did the procedures and the equipment. The improvements allowed the firemen to better respond to each situation they were called upon.
Back in the old days, firefighting was a different thing. We didn't have breathing apparatus. We had canvas coats with a rubber liner, and then it had a wool liner inside of that. They weren't fireproof or fire preventive, nor really heat preventive.
When we started out, we rode on the back of the fire engine going to fires. We didn't have, now all the fire trucks that are built have interior cabs and interior places for the fire, for everybody to ride, going through red lights and speeding through the traffic, and the traffic parts for you, and that's exciting. But when you're hanging on the back of that fire engine, that's real exciting. That is high adventure.
The earlier years we were taught to fight fire, and that was about it. Very little bit of first aid. What's been one of the major improvements is the medical technology that we've gotten into, and the service that we provide the public through our first responder program.
Every fireman back in the day, and you can look, I've got scars on the top of my ears to where they would burn. That's when you could tell that's as far as I could possibly go. Scars on my wrist where the glove and the coat didn't miss. All of the firemen out of that era had that. That was a mark of, yeah, I'm a fireman.
In the 1970s, as the Wichita Falls Fire Department progressed forward, they continually ran up against budget cuts and were forced to delay much-needed new equipment purchases by the city. However, in August of 1977, an anonymous donation brought the jaws of life to the department. This greatly helped in rescuing crash victims from wreckage.
When we used the old pry tools to open vehicles in an accident, and I can recall one very vivid where there was 5 people in this vehicle. Eventually, all 5 of those people lost their lives as a result of the time it took to get them out of that vehicle. What it would take hours to do then, we can do in 15 minutes.
Over the next several decades, through continued focus and determination, the Wichita Falls Fire Department evolved into a world-class unit. In 1984, the Hazardous Materials Response Team was created. In 1991, we saw the launch of the First Responders Program. In the 2000s, new construction was completed on a public safety training center, fire drill field, and fire stations 3, 5, 7, and 8. To date, hundreds of lives have been saved. Millions of dollars in property have been salvaged, and thousands upon thousands have been raised through community outreach programs such as the MDA Pass the Boot program and Operation Santa Claus, which provides gifts for children at Christmas.
I can sit here and say that the job that we do, whether you talk to somebody in Dallas or Houston or New York, we're all firefighters, and we all do basically the same job. We do it because of what we love to do. There's a bond there. When we leave, we all take a part of that with us.
Best job I've ever had. If I were a young man and thought I could relive it all again, I'd be right back in line.